Hey there, good morning, everybody. Happy Sunday to you. Tim from Alpha Wolf Trading coming at you with this week's market overview and stocks to watch for trading and investing. I'm going to just jump right into it. Got a lot to go over. Um, so, pretty wild week last week, right? We started off very weak, had some concerns about levels for sectors, and we're definitely seeing a bit of pressure out there. The question is, how long will this last? There's still this is still a time I think to be very cautious. I did mention last week though that we do get some really um, powerful snapbacks when you get a big drawdown. You get those powerful snapbacks. They're not going to make it super easy for shorts just to go short everything and make a killing. You're going to get these drawdowns, and then you're going to get these real intense snapbacks. The question is this beginning of a trend of lower highs and lower lows? We'll have to see how this plays out and how long this pullback lasts. But this is still a time to be, I think, pretty cautious and be aware of volatility. So let's take a look real quick at the economic data calendar. We've got quite a bit, right? So we've got NFIB small business, we've got consumer price index, core CPI, household debt, we've got weekly jobless claims, retail sales, um, industrial production, manufacturing output, home builders index, housing starts, building permits, consumer sentiment. We've got a lot of stuff that is going to be coming out this week that could impact the markets. We'll see how it plays out. And then we've also got earnings, which continue, right? And I think there are some names, they may not be in my list uh, off the earnings list, but I think there are some names that are definitely worth keeping an eye on for their respective sectors, right? Barrick, which happens to be on the list actually this week, is one to keep an eye on. Gold, silver, very strong. Miners, very strong recently. Let's see what Barrick reports on Monday morning before the open. That could be interesting for that space. But then you've got names like John Deere, right, reporting Friday. I think that's a big one that could impact that sector. Industrials and Nvidia, right? Nvidia reporting on Thursday after the close. I think that's a big one that could impact its sector. Tilray's reporting could impact the cannabis space. Cisco, another big name, right? Could impact the tech space. And then we've got Macy's and Walmart, retail could be impacted there. So we've got some big names that I think you definitely want to keep an eye on just in terms of how it's going to impact the sector that they're related to. Alibaba, another big one, right, for the Chinese space, and JD.com also reporting. So definitely have some big names reporting that could impact their sectors. So keep an eye on that. Let's take a look at the individual sectors, and look, we're seeing some things to be concerned about. At least I'm seeing some things to be concerned about. IBB broke down below this trend line, broke below the 50-day moving average. Actually, did manage to reclaim it, but the fact that we broke this little trend line here a little concerning. We haven't put in a low below 100, but that would be something that I would be looking for. That would be concerning, right? So IBB did manage to bounce towards the end of the week last week, but still kind of guilty till proven innocent. IWM, same thing. We broke below the 50 and the 200-day moving average, and now we've got this trend line that will likely act as resistance on the way back up, right? So we broke below the trend line. That's a little concerning to me. We basically pulled back to this area of potential price support, which did act as support. We bounced, but will this be able to hold? Will we come back up, hit this trend line, and then make another move lower? I don't know. We'll have to see how it plays out, but guilty till proven innocent, right? IYT, transportation, same thing. We broke below the trend line. And now coming back up to the moving averages to this trend line and finding a bit of resistance. Will we go now and make a new low? We'll have to see. But, guilty till proven innocent. QQQs, so broke below the 50-day, managed to stay above the 200-day, and did manage to hold this trend line. We didn't close below the trend line. So that's somewhat positive thing going on there for the QQQs. But this 50-day, we'll see how that acts. It appears to be acting as resistance. SMH, same thing, right? We pulled back below the 50-day. We are trying to hold on to it. So we've got a little battle going on right there around the 50-day. Let's see what happens if we pull back, test this trend line, break below that trend line. I think that is problematic. So TVIX, UVXY, like I said, they're not going to make it easy. We had the big drop on Monday, and then you would have thought that the TIVX and UVXY would have been ripping on Monday, and it actually was an indicator that we were probably going to get a bit of a bounce because they weren't really ripping with the kind of move we were having on the pullback, and that was a little bit of a sign that maybe we were going to get a nice rip your face off rally in the next day or so, and that's exactly what happened, right? We got a nice big snapback bounce. But now looking at TVIX and UVXY, if now that we've had a little bit of a pullback, right, kind of a resetting, if the markets roll over, these things could present opportunities for short-term trading opportunities, day trades, and play them size appropriate. These are not things you want to go big in, and you certainly don't want to chase the gap. Do not chase a gap up on these things. It's pretty sketchy to hold these things overnight. Make sure you are aware of that if you decide to play in that space, in the volatility space with these levered ETFs, okay? XAR, aerospace defense, been a very strong sector. A couple of names within the space making new all-time highs. Aerospace defense still looks pretty good to me. Needs to consolidate a bit. Maybe we pull back and test that 100 level again, see if that can act as support. But maybe we just consolidate here and build up some energy. Nice little snapback there, and still a sector that I think looks pretty darn strong. XBI, we already talked about the biotechs, but a little bit guilty till proven innocent there. Home builders consolidating, broke below the 50-day, pulled back to this trend line, bounced off. Let's see what happens here at the 50-day if we wind up pulling back, if that can hold as support. If it doesn't, then I think potentially you take out that trend line and could be heading towards a 200-day moving average test. Building materials, testing the 50-day moving average. Nice little snapback there, but my concern is, are we potentially looking to pull back and test this trend line? We'll have to see how it plays out. XLE has been death. Energy space has been death. Keep thinking that there's got to be some value there, and they just look horrible, right? And I think it's a space that you continue to avoid, at least for now. Broke below this trend line, below the 50-day, a declining 50-day, declining 200-day, coming up to the bottom side of this trend line. I think that acts as resistance. Potentially we head lower. I just think that everybody's trying to pick a bottom in energy, and it just hasn't worked out. Maybe we go back down and we test this low down here and get a double bottom test. That could be maybe an opportunity for a bounce. We'll see. Industrials below the 50-day moving average, tested this little trend line here, tested an area of price support, did manage to hold. Let's see what happens this week. Let's see what happens with Deere And I think Caterpillar also this week gives an update on their machinery sales, so that could impact industrials. If we break below this area of price support, that could be problematic for industrials. XLP, consumer staples, pulled back below the 50-day to the trend line and bounced, got back above the 50-day, kind of looking like it may retest and pull back. We'll have to see if then we retest this trend line, if it holds or if it pulls back, or if it fails. But Kraft Heinz was one that I was keeping an eye on last week. That thing is making new all-time lows. At some point, I do think Kraft Heinz will be worth a little, looking for some kind of a snapback play in Kraft Heinz. I don't think it's here yet. They have some issues over there at Kraft Heinz, and this space in general has had a very, very nice run, but there are some valuations within the space that are a little extended, and wouldn't be surprised if we saw some more weakness in consumer staples. XLV Healthcare coming back up to the underside of the 50-day, did break below this trend line to an area of potential price support, bounced back a little bit, but healthcare, we'll see. I mean, not one of my favorite spaces right now, but does look like it's trying to take out the 50-day. Could be worth keeping an eye on. Consumer discretionary, pulling back below the 50-day, broke below the trend line, came back up into the trend line, came back up into the 50-day, finding a little resistance. Do we come back down and test this 200-day, test this area of potential price support around 110? We'll see. XME, metals and mining. So interesting that you have gold and silver and those things that are moving nicely. However, you got copper, which is showing some signs of weakness. That's concerning. Global growth being the concern there, trade war, all that stuff. Metals and mining not looking all that great. Could be heading towards a double bottom test potentially. But kind of got a little bear flag there, just not a good looking space right there. XOP, oil and exploration, like I said, looks like grim death. Took out the double bottom, making new lows. Where it ends, who knows? Anybody's guess, right? And then retail broke below the trend line, came back up, tested the trend line, and look, we got Walmart reporting, we've got Macy's reporting. That could be impactful for the space. We'll have to see how it plays out, but you guys know how I feel about retail, not one of the sectors that I enjoy playing in. So overall, I mean, you could just tell by looking at the different charts that there is some concern. There is some reason to have concern out there with the way that we're breaking below some of these trend lines, below 50 days, right? So it's just it's a time to be cautious, and let's take a look at the T2106 and T2108 and T2107. Last week I mentioned we get down into the 20 or lower area, things are overbought or oversold, and time to maybe look to take a couple positions for a bounce. And T2106, we were getting down, negative 200, right? We got close. We got down to negative 170, 160, and then we got a little bit of a bounce, right? Things were starting to get a little extreme. That's the fear indicator with McClellan. And then we had a nice little bounce. T2107, we got down to about the 40 spot and bounce, but then we have the T2108, which was really close to testing 20, right? And look at the bounce we got now. How long this bounce lasts, we'll have to see, right? I mean, we can get into single digits with this T2108. We'll see if we can manage to hold this 20, or if we break lower. We'll have to see how it plays out. But had a nice little bounce, but that does not mean that this pullback is over by any stretch of the imagination. So keep that in mind. All right, let's take a look at some of the earnings stocks that I have on my radar for this week. ARCT, and let me pull up and see where these guys report here. ARCT, Arcturus. Oh, they report Thursday after the close. Now, the reason why this is on here, it's had a really nice move. It broke over an area. You got a flat top breakout here. Look at it, back out, right? You had a nice flat top breakout, good volume. I'm not sure what the catalyst was that sent that on the run, but if you look at it, we had a pullback to right back to this area of potential support and the 50-day moving average. So we're in an interesting spot for a potential bounce. Now maybe this runs heading into earnings, it gets back up into this $15 area, and then they disappoint, or they get earnings not all that great. Then maybe we get a pullback, double top. But this could be one to keep an eye on for a move heading into earnings. I wouldn't hold it through earnings. A biotech name, but could be one to keep an eye on for a trading opportunity ahead of earnings. And then if they report earnings or have some fantastic news through their earnings call, maybe this thing goes up and takes out the $15 holla. I wouldn't chase it, but it is worth keeping an eye on just because of where it is sitting in terms of potential support, right? So potential trading opportunity there in ARCT. LIQT. So this is one that I actually missed. This was before they did their reverse split. Had a hell of a nice run. Did a reverse split. A little bit of a pop. Pulling back to an area of potential support. So we've got a couple of things going on here. We've got the 200-day moving average that could act as support. We've got some potential price support in this area as well. Stochastic starting to curl up. Got a little bit of volume on Friday. These guys, LIQT reports Wednesday before the open. So, maybe you get a move heading into earnings. I'm thinking potentially a test up into this $9 area right under the 50 EMA. There's price resistance or potential price resistance there at $9. If they report a good earnings number, maybe they get a pop back up into this $10 area. Trading, day trading opportunities. Things got a small float because of the recent reverse split, right? They give good guidance. This could be an interesting opportunity. Could be a trade after the earnings are announced if they give a good guide. If you could take out $10 with conviction, I think your next area of potential resistance somewhere around $12.80, $13. So pretty big, pretty decent size move for this stock. If it gaps up, do not chase it. Look for an intraday setup. But this one, I think, for a small floater could be interesting. It's got kind of a cup with handle thing going on the weekly time frame. Interesting setup there. 10 is a big spot to get through. Maybe this gets some action heading into earnings. You take some off, or take most of it off, 90% of it off if you want to hold just a little lotto piece through the earnings number. But worth keeping an eye on. LIQT. IDXG, another one that's got kind of an interesting setup here, right? So it had a nice little pop. What I'm looking at here on this one is it based out for a while. And this is a penny play, right? Penny play, 36.9 million shares in the float, I think. But TC2000 has been off on the float lately. So it's adding, you got a couple of things here. The $1 holla, you break above one, can be very powerful move, number one, right? So we're kind of consolidating here just below the 200-day moving average and the $1 holla. So we've got, if you can take out the 200-day, you take out the $1 holla, you got stochastics that are starting to curl up. It looks like it's got a fairly small float. I think this has got an interesting potential setup. These guys report, when do they report? IDXG. Interspace, where are you? They report Tuesday before the open, okay? So I don't think that you really want to try to play this ahead of the earnings. But if they report a good number, give a good guide. Taking out this trend line, right? It's already taken out this trend line. It basically kind of pulled back. Let's see, hold on a second. Pulled back, tested the top of the trend line, bounced a little bit. I think it's got an interesting looking setup. Could be worth keeping an eye on for a trading opportunity. And maybe a trend reversal, right? Maybe we've got a trend reversal in development there. Gold, like I said, hold on a second. Very interesting spot for gold, for Barrett Gold, right? So testing a area of potential price resistance, has had a very big run, but if you look at where we're at, right, we are at an area of resistance. If these guys disappoint, you could see a pullback, and if we can manage to take out 18, I think potentially 20, 50, and then $23 are your next areas of potential resistance, right? So they report Monday before the open. Look, 50-day crossed above the 200-day. It's just had a big run from 12 to 18 in a very short period of time, so I wouldn't be totally shocked if this thing pulled back. So BPTH reports, you know, look, I'm not all that crazy about the chart on this one. It's you know, it's below the 50-day. It's it looks like it's below, is that below the 200-day too, or above the 200? It looks like we're above the 200-day, but it's below the 50-day moving average. It has some interesting pops, but it tends to pop and flop. You can see all these topping candles here. It's at an area of potential price support, and maybe we're getting, you know, we're getting some bottoming, some wicks here. Maybe we get some kind of a pop. It's a low float. They report BPTH. When do they report? Biopath. Let's see. Hold on a second here. Biopath. Thursday before the open. Okay, so could get some action heading into earnings if they have some really good news after earnings. Thing could be, you know, it's had some big runs, right? I mean, look at this thing. It went from $8 to what, 70? You know, small float, could be a trading opportunity there depending on what happens after their earnings. Just worth having on the radar, and I certainly would not chase any gap up on that. Look for some kind of an intraday setup. There are a lot of people that are probably trapped in that name from much higher prices, right? So keep that in mind. CRNT is so, you know, these guys. I've been watching this name for a while. They report Monday right before the open. I like this one for a potential swing, long-term hold consideration in the 245 to you know 245, 230, 225 area down to, you know, $1.88 or so. they've kind of pre-announced their their earnings. They're gonna be a little soft because of some delays and some orders that they've been expecting, but they expect that those orders are still coming. So I've played this one a couple of times. Depending on what happens with their earnings, if they give a good guide, this thing could get a pop. Could be a day trading opportunity if they maybe I don't think they're going to disappoint because they've already announced it, right? It's kind of pre-announced. Pulls back to this 225 area. I could look to start building a position for a long-term hold. So I think it could be a good value play in the $1.88 to 250 range, somewhere in that area. CRMB, recent reverse split. It's got an interesting look on the daily, right? It's holding above the 200-day. You got the 50-day, which is crossing above the 200-day, so you got a golden cross happening. $10 is a big spot, right, to take out. It's been acting as resistance. It's at an area where maybe we're finding some support. And these guys, Cormetics reports, when do they report? They report on Tuesday after the close. So potential trading opportunity there, small float. If they have a good earnings call, give a good guide. If they don't have a good earnings report or a good guide, could be coming back down to test the 5 and change area, right? So kind of have a reverse head and shoulders pattern on the daily. We've got this area of potential support worth at least having on the radar for a trading opportunity. Rumble I have played in the past and actually have been considering re-entry on a swing for Rumble, and the $4 area is ideally where I would like to get involved. They've got earnings Monday after the close. There's been a lot of insider activity in the low 5 to 4 and change range for buying the stock. It's a fairly small float. I think it's a pretty compelling story, I think, but we'll see. We'll have to see how it plays out. It gets down to 4. I think I would be inclined, 350 to 4 area. I would be inclined to dip. With the caveat that they didn't report some disastrous quarter, right, and gave a decent guide. I mean, if it's a disaster quarter, then no. I mean, if it takes out 350, who knows where the bottom is on this thing. But if they report a good number, it could be a gapper, and I wouldn't chase the gap. I would look for an opportunity intraday. Look for some volume. It trades very thin, 22,000 shares, but I am keeping an eye on Rumble, and their earnings this week could present a trading opportunity. HYRE, another one that is in an area of potential price support. It looks as though 3 is trying to hold this support. Just a quick day trading opportunity in this one. Small float. It's had some nice runs in the past, right? It's had some 3-4 day runs. Maybe you get that type of deal again. It does have kind of a head and shoulders pattern. It doesn't look great, right? And this could be a bear flag. We'll see. It breaks below $3. That's problematic for HYRE. Could be heading back down to the 160 area. But for a trading opportunity, if they give a good number, it could be worth keeping an eye on. NEPT, this is a cannabis play, right? You got Tilray that's reporting also this week. So NEPT at an area of potential price support, right? We've pulled back. We've got the 50-day here as support. Had a big volume move here. It's been pulling back on lower volume. this is an interesting place for it potentially bounce. NEPT reports Wednesday before the open. Worth keeping an eye on that one for a trading opportunity. And actually, the cannabis space itself in general, is kind of looking like maybe there's some life coming back into that space. So we'll have to see, but this one could be worth watching for a trading opportunity as well. And then let's see, Array, medical device. So it broke over this trend line here, got up to the 200-day, the $4 holla, pulled back. Right now we're back to an area of potential price support. We're back to the top of this trend line. Maybe we get a bounce off these guys report. Array, where does Array report? Oh, they report Thursday after the close, right? So could be an interesting play off of earnings. I mean, it does look like maybe we're getting a trend reversal here, right? Broke above it, come back down, test it. Maybe this acts as a springboard for it to move. Thinking we go back up and test the 420 area, could take that out. I think it gets real interesting. I think potentially you get a pop up into the $5 range. So that, I think, is my list. Yeah, that's it for the free list this week. I've got a pretty decent list for the pro members. I'll be getting that out to you shortly. Still a time to be cautious, right? Cautious, but there will still be opportunities. Regardless of what the market's doing, there will be opportunities to trade. Even if we see some pretty significant weakness, those stocks that surprise and buck whatever the market's doing, those actually get more eyes, get the day traders kind of focused on them. So there'll still be some trading opportunities there. All right, be careful out there. Do not chase. Have a plan. Know your risk reward. If you like what I do me a favor and just give us a like on the video, share it, retweet it. Would appreciate that. All right, that's it. Have a fantastic rest of your weekend. Be safe, and I'll see you all next week.